What does it mean for Bolton if he's convicted of taking sensitive information and not only publishing it, but also taking it, which is perhaps what they were looking for today at his home? It could mean, according to Jonathan Turley, legal scholar and expert from American University, who went on Fox News earlier today, 20 years, up to 20.
It is intriguing here because these are long-standing allegations that the book indicated or referenced classified material that he may have acquired when he was in the administration. We're not clear as to what that is, but it would suggest that it could be national defense information. The reason that's important is that creates a heightened potential penalty. So you can have penalties that range from 5 to 20 years. 20 years tends to be the sentences for concealing information, obstructing justice. Simply having classified information can weigh in at about 10 years. And there are often multiple counts because each of those documents can be charged separately. So there is a strange history here. So you had these allegations coming out as early as the first Trump administration. Then there was an allegation that the Biden administration essentially scuttled a further look at this case. Right. And now we have this new development. But we really don't know if there's something that has occurred most recently, whether they uncovered something that they believed is sort of evergreen, that this is still a viable criminal case.
So that's the question. What did they uncover? What do they think they may have uncovered? Were they trying to get something there at Bolton's residence? I mean, a lot of questions right now, but again, I think a lot of this stems from Trump's concern and people around him. They're concerned that he took some classified information way back when. Let me go to something that our friend Benny Johnson actually just put out on Twitter. He wrote, he spoke with somebody, clearly a source at the FBI, just told me that the John Bolton raid is about Bolton's serial theft and publication. This is interesting. This is echoing what I just said, of classified information that has gone on for years. The FBI official said to Benny, and I quote, "It is widely known that the Bolton," I assume they mean administration, or the Bolton, I don't know, John Bolton, mishandled and took classified information for use in his 2020 book after he failed to get approval from the National Security Council for the publication of what they determined to be highly classified information. This raid on Bolton's residences comes after years of investigation into this potentially criminal disclosure, which started in 2020 before being put on pause for political reasons. The Trump administration is committed to restoring integrity to the Justice Department and to ending the weaponization of government. Our investigation will follow the evidence and ensure accountability. So the question is, what was possibly, in their view, Bolton doing to weaponize the government some more? I think it's pretty clear, as I said, that these guys eventually were not friends. John Bolton coming out and making some kind of wild allegations. I'll give you an example. There was the one on Venezuela in his book. And, you know, I was all over that story and continue to have many tremendous sources on both sides down in Venezuela. And so I was kind of living, sleeping, eating, breathing that every single day. And what came out in this book was John Bolton saying that Donald Trump thought it would be cool if we could invade Venezuela. Well, I can tell you with certainty, that was never going to happen. Like ever. Maybe that, you know, was him playing around, kind of trying to pacify Bolton, like, okay, let me see if I can give him something to do. We're working on a project, right? Remember the time that Bolton had the notebook in his hand and it said something about Colombia troops, thousands of Colombia troops going in, troops to Colombia rather, which borders Venezuela. And everybody was like, whoa, oh my gosh, are we like, Donald Trump never, ever, ever, ever wanted to engage militarily with Venezuela. He was trying to force some kind of compromise, perhaps. I mean, they would have liked to have gotten the guy that kind of looked a little like Obama, right? Guaido in there, who was better than the alternative in many people's view. But it didn't happen. And it didn't happen. And the answer was not to say, okay, we're going to go storm in with the military. That was never the president's intention. And yet Bolton published that. He totally, and like people called me up. I'm like, what do you think? No, I told them there's just no way. Like maybe he was horsing around again, trying to give Bolton something to do. But what was the classified information? I mean, now I guess I kind of need to read the book, right? that Bolton put out. Anyway, here's Donald Trump at the time of the book saying, you know what? This guy deserves to be in jail.
John Bolton came out and said, that doesn't work with country to country. What's your reaction?
Look, this is a guy with no personality. All he wanted to do is drop bombs on everybody. He was one of the many people that got us into the war in the Middle East, which was a big mistake. I said to him, let me ask you, do you think recently, I said, what did you think? He said, I think we made the right decision. I said, you lost me there. It was the worst decision in the history of our country. I know you may disagree with that. Worst? Well, now you might agree. At the time, you would have, felt differently. But also, the Libyan model, you know what that means, right? Look it up. One of the dumbest things ever said, I think it was said on Deface the Nation, the Libyan model. He said the Libyan model, that was set us back. You have no idea. John Bolton was a stupid guy, and he was a guy with no heart. And he also had a statement that he would lie whenever he had to. He has that statement. It's a well-known statement. And I fired him. And I didn't think it was a big deal. And I wasn't around him very much. But what he did do is he took classified information and he published it during a presidency. It's not, it's one thing to write a book after, during. And I believe that he's a criminal. And I believe, frankly, he should go to jail for that.
Judge?
And he could. Okay, so that's what we're talking about at this moment in time. So all this talk of classified information, it's really kind of interesting because if you go back to when Donald Trump was being accused of stealing classified information and taking it down to Mar-a-Lago with him, John Bolton came out and said some pretty scandalous things. I mean, this is going on the heels of Bolton being accused of publishing. Remember, classified information. There was an effort underway. Eventually, the judge decided in the case to allow for Bolton to publish his book. But don't forget how Bolton turned the tables kind of as fast as he could, I guess. Here's John Bolton talking about the Mar-a-Lago raid on Donald Trump. By the way, Biden took stuff too. It stayed in his garage next to his Corvette. Watch.
Any given moment. But I don't think he cared about the classification system. I don't think he appreciated the sensitivity of this information, and he didn't appreciate the sensitivity of how it was often acquired, the so-called sources and methods. So this had been briefed to him before I arrived. It was repeated frequently. I think it simply had no impact on him whatever.
There's a couple of different ways that people think about this, and people who are not friendly to the president, who think about what's happened here. And one of them is, Donald Trump, master thief, criminal, running some kind of elaborate conspiracy to bring things out of the White House and keep them secret, for potentially for political or financial gain. There are other people who his attitude is Trump is chaotic. He's careless. He's not that smart. He took these things almost by mistake, and now he's basically stamping his feet and saying they're mine. I don't want to give them up. Give me a sense of where you think the truth lies with respect to Trump's intelligence, carelessness, and the degree to which he might have brought motive to bear on taking these documents out of the White House and keeping them for this long at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, it's very hard to speculate on motive other than that he liked cool things. He saw things so he wanted to take them, and he was pretty much able to take them, and not just on classified information matters, on all kinds of things that crossed his desk. Some days he liked to eat a lot of French fries. Some days he took classified documents. He wanted them. Why did he want them? Because he could get them.
Right. And
Wow. Okay. So it's just interesting that now things have sort of changed, and now John Bolton may be the one being accused of taking classified documents. Now, I get it. A lot of people are saying, gee, this doesn't really feel right. It seems like maybe this is revenge of some sort. And is this really I get that, you're going after Letitia, but John Bolton people might have a harder time with that. However, again, I go back to, I think the frustration and the fury that the president felt back in 2020 when he put forward this book. And at the time, there was a lot of concern that there were names and people and information in that book that were classified. And then the judge allowed for it to go through anyway, right? Because if you were against Trump, that's all that mattered. Just anybody who didn't like Trump suddenly was getting through on everything. And I think to a certain extent, this new administration is coming in and saying, hey, we are going to hold people accountable. There is accountability in all this. And it's not a tit for tat, but making sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else again in the future. It certainly seemed like John Bolton was a little bit worried. I don't know, maybe a week or two ago, he was on CNN and wishing that Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard were just never around. Remember? Well, I don't think I showed you this. Forgive me for not showing you this at the time. I'm going to show you now. Here he is a couple of weeks ago, John.
I think a lot of Republicans right now just wish Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and a number of other Trump nominees would just go away.
Kind of interesting, right? He just wished they would go away. Well, they definitely didn't go away. They went straight to his house. So now the stakes have risen, so to speak. And people are worried. The media is spazzing out. You get CNN freaking out. Of course, he was like the new star on CNN, right? They had him on every other day, it seemed. And he would complain about Trump and others there in the intel community, perhaps in some ways worried about exactly this. I'm not sure. But here's CNN losing it over this one.
We're following major breaking news this morning that continues to unfold. The FBI conducting a court-authorized search at the home of John Bolton as part of a national security investigation. That is according to a source familiar with the matter. A ton of questions around this right now. Our CNN crew has been on the ground, on the scene this morning, observed FBI personnel near Bolton's home, even seeing personnel go into his home. John Bolton, as you well know, is President Trump's former national security advisor and a former U.S. ambassador to the UN. In recent years, he has become a prominent critic of the president ever since he left the first Trump administration. As recently as this week, he spoke to us about President Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin.
Well, I think it's a reflection of just how confident the Russians feel. They have escaped the sanctions that have been threatened by President Trump. They've heard Secretary of State Rubio say on Sunday, we're not going to sanction them because it will cause diplomatic efforts to fail. And they are trying to keep the table set so that things work out in their direction.
That was just a couple days ago. CNN's Caitlin Polans joining us now. Caitlin, you brought us this breaking news and you have some new reporting already. What's going on?
That's right, Kate. We can confirm, according to a person familiar with this investigation, that the probe, it's related to the possible retention of national security information. So a little bit more specific on what we know about this investigation, this search that the FBI is conducting of John Bolton's home. Not only is it about national security, it is about the retention of national security information. Often, Kate, that looks like, are there classified documents being kept outside of where they should be kept? That often is what we see in investigations like this, but we're still waiting to hear more of what this is. The FBI, they are at work still on that scene in Maryland where John Bolton's home is. They took bags out of their vehicles to bring inside. There were 4 or 6 agents. They have those blazers on that say FBI in the back. So this is quite an observable scene right now, very different than when the retention of national security information was being investigated during a search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago property 3 years ago. John Bolton, he has not been charged with anything here. He's not been in government for 6 years. He did write a book and was under investigation soon after he left the Trump administration in 2020. He was being investigated at that time by a federal grand jury in Washington on the possible disclosure of classified information in that book, and he was not charged there. So looking at the possibility of a through line, it seems to be more likely, given that this is about the retention of national security information. There hasn't been a formal comment yet that we've received from John Bolton or from his lawyer. He was unaware of the FBI activity this morning. He wasn't home at the time. And we also are waiting to see if the administration will say anything publicly. So far, some cryptic messages posted on social media by the two top officials at the FBI. Kash Patel, the FBI director, on the platform X, writing, "No one is above the law, FBI agents on mission." That was right after 7 a.m. this morning. And then the deputy FBI director, Dan Bongino, posting, "Public corruption will not be tolerated," not mentioning John Bolton by name in either of those things. This is a situation that would be court authorized, so the FBI would have gone to a court with the help of Justice Department prosecutors asking to have the approval of a search like this take place. They would have had to have probable cause to do this, but that, as we know, is a far, far long way from potential charges and also potential trial, anything like that. Kate?
Long way
She
from
seemed
that.
a little flustered, right? Just a teeny tiny bit flustered over this whole ordeal. It took her a lot of words to say what I think I told you pretty briefly. Anyway, she wasn't the only one. So Andy McCabe as well, don't forget Andy, right, who was part of the whole Obamagate thing. And the thinking is, they're going to go back after all these Obamagate people. So John Bolton, that may be different. I don't know. I had the same sort of questions over the book and the classified materials, et cetera. But Andy may be circled for a whole other set of reasons, along with Comey and Brennan and the whole Obama Russiagate crew, right? Listen to Andy's reaction to all this.
Yeah, right. He went through the process. The question is who approved it. And that was, you're right, that was a big point of contention in Trump 1. Andy, I want to bring you back in and just put up some of the quotes that John was referring to from the current heads of the Justice Department and FBI. This is Pam Bondi, 7:45 a.m. "America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued always." During the raid. Kash Patel post, 7:03 a.m. "No one is above the law. FBI agents on a mission." How unusual is that kind of post from the heads of the law enforcement agencies in America while this high-profile raid is going on?
I can't think of another FBI director or attorney general, and I worked for many of them, who would have done something similar. This is just simply not the way Department of Justice employees at the department or the bureau operate. We understand that there's all kinds of unfavorable attention and reputation impact that comes along with having something happen like what's happening at John Bolton's house right now. In the past, DOJ leadership has always taken the role like we don't go out of our way to draw suspicion or castigate people unless we are doing it officially in court in the form of an indictment and then going into court and proving our case. They speak through the court filings, and that is it. So I think what you're seeing from Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino is pretty typical for them, but it is absolutely atypical for anyone else who's ever served in those roles. And I think it really degrades the Bureau and the department's image and legitimacy in the way that they are so blatantly trying to
I'm sorry. Like this
media.
guy, I got to turn him off, right? Because like now I'm just getting annoyed. Like Andy McCabe, weren't you and all your cronies? I don't know if he specifically, we got to go back through his Twitter account to check that. But how many times do I have to hear from them? No one's above the law. No one's above the law. I mean, whether it was the Fani Willis case, whether it was, Fani Willis case, whether it was Letitia James, she was so proud of that. Boy, she have egg on her face right now, right? And more trouble's coming for Letitia. They all did this. This was constant. Oh, no one's above the law. No one's above the law. And then when Kash says it, oh my gosh, how dare you? How dare you? Now this makes it look like a vendetta. I'll tell you, JD saying, this is not a vendetta, guys. This is just about making sure that people are held accountable. I want you to see him here with the NBC host on, they actually ran the clip on MS, whatever the heck it is. Now, by the way, the president was weighing in on that today. It was kind of funny. I'll show you later in the show. Here's JD.
I do want to start with some breaking news. We've learned that the FBI is searching the home of former Ambassador John Bolton, his office as well.
Sure.
Can you tell me Why is the FBI raiding Ambassador Bolton's home and office? And did the White House get a heads up?
Well, so we're in the very early stages of an ongoing investigation into John Bolton. I will say we're going to let that investigation proceed. What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come. But as you know, Kristen, this is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. And of course, I'll let the FBI comment on the next stage of the investigation.
What's at the root of this? Is this about classified documents?
Well, again, I'll let the FBI speak to that. Classified documents are certainly part of it, but I think that there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here, we're not going to prosecute it. If there is a crime here, of course, Ambassador Bolton will get his day in court. That's how it should be. But again, our focus here is on, did he break the law? Did he commit crimes against the American people? If so, then he deserves to be prosecuted.
As we have this conversation, has Ambassador Bolton been detained, taken into custody, arrested in any form?
So this news just broke this morning, and the FBI, I haven't talked to the FBI this morning. I don't know the answer to that question. I assume that he hasn't been detained and won't be detained until there's a prosecution, if that actually happens.
As you know, Ambassador Bolton is a frequent critic of President Trump's. He's also on Kash Patel's enemies list. The administration has already revoked his security clearance, Secret Service protection. Is Ambassador Bolton being targeted because he's a critic of President Trump?
No, not at all. And in fact, if we were trying to do that, we would just throw out prosecutions willy-nilly like the Biden administration DOJ did, prosecutions that later got thrown out in court. If we bring a case, and of course we haven't done that yet, the Department of Justice has not done that yet. We are investigating Ambassador Bolton, but if they ultimately bring a case, it will be because they determine that he has broken the law. We're going to be careful about that. We're going to be deliberate about that because we don't think that we should throw people, even if they disagree with us politically, maybe especially if they disagree with us politically. You shouldn't throw people willy-nilly in prison. You should let the law drive these determinations, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, so then the big question then becomes, did he take classified documents? If so, what did he take? And was this related to the book? Or maybe there's something else that we don't actually know about, but it's clear there's an investigation going on.